Happy Friday, everybody. Good morning. I woke up unusually early myself with this unquenchable desire to find out why we had a Virginia and West Virginia. So to do a little research. Now, as I was going through and looking up the history of Virginia, the first of the colonies, by the way, named Virginia after the Virgin Queen, Queen Elizabeth. Anyway, and I kept thinking to myself, one of the most frequent comments that I see regarding, and let me see how I can say this properly, regarding people in the South, when other people are talking about, their voting preferences and those kinds of things. One of the most common things that I see is this idea that if you're in the South, you're going to marry your cousin, or you're going to marry somebody in your family, all right? And that's just, I think, a really easy insult to be able to add to the conversation when you're talking to someone from the South, all right? Now, I wanted to say this is one of the things that kind of, really drives me a little bit bonkers because, of course, by saying, everybody in the South marries their cousin, and I say that too sometimes, I need to do better. But you're implying that they're unintelligent or that they don't know any better, that they are less than you because they have this idea of being able to just marry a relative. Now, first of all, let's clarify. Nobody should be marrying anybody's relative, all right? Everybody should be over 18 in order to get married, and that's something that's not so set in stone in a lot of the southern states, so that's questionable. You should be 18 or older, all right? But when it comes to a family getting married or that traditional southern kind of insult, I keep thinking, Franklin Roosevelt married his cousin, right? Eleanor Roosevelt. And Van Buren also married his cousin. So we've had two presidents in the United States, both from New York, that did actually marry cousins. So I keep thinking to myself, I'm like, well, I know it's an insult to the South, but in reality, that went on. People did that back then. And also, if you look at some of the monarchies, they are so inbred that there's multiple extra body parts and such. I'm talking to you, King Tutankhamun. I'm just trying to say this was something that was practiced heavily in order to keep the bloodlines the way that they wanted them in the different areas of monarchies or whomever was king or emperor. So that was done. So I'm kind of, again, I get a little bit frustrated when I hear the first comment going after someone from the South being, well, you guys marry your sisters or your brothers. Now, technically, and I've actually looked this up in a lot of states, it's not actually legal to to kind of have only 1 degree of separation from a family member in order to get married. Again, my biggest beef has to be that you should be 18 before getting married. I don't think we need any child brides, and that's questionable, but that's not just in the South. That's kind of all over the U.S. But I'm just trying to put out there this way of thinking that, these kinds of insults, they're so repetitive and ongoing, and they have been for decades. And I know people get frustrated with different cultures that we have here in the United States. But when we're talking about the South, I think it's counterproductive to keep throwing out this idea that they're marrying their sisters or cousins, because I think that insult goes back in as our own prejudice. And some people might say it's a big city versus small town or rural kind of situation. So the big city mouse and the country mouse. And there's some issues going on there, especially with the great big huge states, right, that are in the Midwest and up and over. So I'm just thinking, we're all different here, and I'm not trying to say that someone's doing anything wrong. I'm just saying I'm noting here that that particular insult has such a huge backstory to it and is used so frequently, I can't help but think that if that's the first thing that we're ready to say when we're arguing with someone from the South, that it almost seems a bit lazy. Like, I think we can do better. I think we can do better insults than, you're going to marry your sister or your cousin. Now, I'm not saying anyone's doing anything wrong. It's just one of those thoughts that I came across in my quest to find the history of Virginia and West Virginia, which woke me up this morning at like 3 a.m. I had to know the answer. Anyway, that's kind of my super early morning thoughts and ponderings of what I could definitely do better, and maybe others as well, when it comes to these stereotypes of people in the South marrying their sisters or their sisters or their cousins. So, I mean, again, it's one of those things, like, I'm not trying to give anybody credit either, but I'm also saying, when are we going to be over that particular insult when it comes to the South? I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts? What do you think?